Hey, what's going on, everybody? So I wanted to do a follow-up video on the Jussie Smollett situation, and I actually came across some information that I didn't have before. You may know that I made several videos on Jussie Smollett, and I talked about the legality of the lawsuit that the city of Chicago brought against Jussie Smollett. Well, what I didn't have at this time was a letter sent out by Jussie Smollett's attorneys to the city of Chicago when they demanded that that Jussie Smollett reimburse Chicago for the monies that it spent in the investigation. Right now, I'm not going to go through this entire letter, but I wanted to make a video on two major takeaways from the whole situation, or the possible defense that Jussie Smollett may have. Now, Jussie Smollett did file a response to the city of Chicago's suit against him. I don't have access to that response yet. I'm still looking for it, and once I have it, I'm going to make a video. But I think I may have found some clues in this letter as to what his possible response could be. So the letter basically responds to the city of Chicago, and it basically, in my opinion, berates them for even asking for such of, to being reimbursed. So basically, it goes on: your unprecedented attempt to file a civil lawsuit against Mr. Smollett, charging him with Municipal Code 1-21010 for repayment of investigation costs, is unconstitutional as applied to Mr. Smollett. And then it says the Chicago False Claims Act 1-21010 through 12260 was enacted on January 10th, 2005 and modeled after the federal FCA. These statutes are routinely used to bring civil lawsuits against corporations for deceptive business practices in order to prevent fraud and protect consumers. And then it says, see City of Chicago v. Purdue. And then it gives another case, Madigan versus United Construction Company of America. And then it goes on to say, or as quasi-tam whistleblower actions. Our research discloses no cases in which the municipal ordinance has been used to try to get a second bite at the apple once charges against a criminal defendant have been dismissed. Thus, despite your repeated claims that you want to treat Mr. Smollett like any other citizen, the 16-count indictment against him, followed by your threats for further prosecution, clearly constitutes a desperate treatment application of 1-21010 under the facts of this case is unconstitutional. So let's just stop right there. Right? So they're basically saying that trying to apply this municipal statute to Jussie Smollett, it's unconstitutional. Well, you know what? They could be right and wrong. One of the arguments that they actually making, as you can see early in the paragraph, they're actually saying that this municipal code only applies to corporations, right? Or they're trying to make the case. Well, the arguments or the case law that they provided to make the arguments doesn't really make the arguments for them, right? So I actually found the case that they were talking about. Basically, it's City of Chicago versus Purdue. And basically, when you do a search for the actual statute, there's nothing in this case that I read that says, yeah, this only applies to corporations. I think what they're trying to do is that they're just trying to say, well, this statute has only been used to prosecute corporations or to bring actions against corporations, but that doesn't exclude everyone else. So basically, within this case, I found the municipal statute, right? 12110 prohibits any person, and it basically, goes on to tell you what it is. Prohibits any person from knowingly making a false statement of material fact to the city in violation of any statute, ordinance, or regulation, or knowingly making a false statement of material fact to the city in connection with the application, report, affidavit, oath, or attestation. And then it basically goes on to tell you what the actual statute is, but we're just going to cut from here and go to the actual statute. And the actual statute, 12110, basically starts off. It says, any person who knowingly makes a false statement of material fact to the city in violation of any statute, ordinance, or regulation. Let's just stop right here. It says, any person. It doesn't say any corporations, or it applies to corporations only. So clearly they created this statute with the intention of using it against any and everybody, right? So to me, I don't really buy the argument that it only applies to corporations. The one thing I am a little puzzled about is why the city only relied on this statute alone. And the reason I say that is because what Jussie Smollett allegedly did could be classified as good old fashioned fraud. What is fraud? Well, let's take a look. Basically, as a fraudulent misrepresentation, sometimes referred to as fraud and deceit or deceit, are one, a false statement of material fact. We know that Jussie Smollett is alleged of doing that. He's alleging that he's alleged that he was attacked, and the city is going to come out and say, hey, that's not true. The Osundondario brothers confessed, and they basically said that Jussie Smollett has paid them to, participate in this fraud, for lack of a better word, or to participate in creating this, fraudulent misrepresentation. That's what the city is going to say, and the Alcendario brothers are going to basically testify. At least I believe they are, right? And then two, known or believed to be false by the party making it. Well, I mean, one and two in this situation are going to be one and the same. Obviously, they're going to say that Jussie Smollett made the false statement and he knew it was false because he orchestrated the entire thing. And then three, intent to induce the other party to act. Right? He's orchestrating this. He's alleged. Any and everything I say in this video is alleged. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. Maybe he was attacked by the Alcendario brothers over a dispute about something. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not a lawyer, so everything I say in this video is alleged, right? So basically, what they're going to allege is that he made this false statement with the intention of getting the Chicago Police Department to basically act, and then he's going to use this situation to allegedly he's going to use this situation to, I guess, force the owners of the show Empire, or the producers of the show Empire, to basically have sympathy on him, or to, for some reason in his mind, he thought that this was probably going to end in him getting more pay or more publicity. I don't know, but the bottom line is he made these false statements to induce the Chicago Police Department to act, right? And four, action by another party in reliance on the truth of the statement. Now, this is where there could be a possible hole. I know that the police department is required to act, but I don't know if they necessarily believed him right off. But they had to have believed some of the stuff that he said, because then, they did the investigation. I don't know. Maybe they're doing an investigation with an open mind and not believing necessarily what he says. But I think at some point when a person comes in and say, hey, I've been attacked, there has to be that initial belief that the person was attacked in order for you to start that investigation. Otherwise, you would probably end up in a situation where, half the people that come to the Chicago Police Department, maybe this is the exact situation, I don't know, but half the people would be turned away because nobody would believe them, right? So I think that there would have had to been some initial belief from the Chicago Police Department in order to start this investigation. Otherwise, why would they? And I think somewhere along the lines, after they did the research, things just didn't add up, and then, bam, that's when that's when the tables turn, right? And then 5, damage to the other party resulting from the such reliance. Basically, they did all this work because of this fraud that Jussie Smollett created, and the end result is that it cost hundreds of thousand hours or hundreds of thousands of dollars in police overtime or just police hours period, right? So maybe they didn't rely on this stat on the common law of fraud because they wanted to do as much damage as possible. And I think the statute probably would allow for the city to receive more money, right? Because there it basically goes on. Let me see if I can pick this out. Liability to the city for civil penalties of not less than $500 and not more than $1,000, plus up to 3 times the amount of damages which the city sustained because the person violation of this section. So that means that, to me, it means that if Jussie Smollett caused them $130,000 in damages, then to me, and I'm horrible with math, then to me that means they can go after Jussie Smollett for $390,000, right? Plus the $500 to $1,000 in fees, right, or penalties. So maybe they chose to go with the statute versus the common law remedy, I guess, or common law claim. But in my mind, the city should have used them both, right? And that way they would have avoided, this type of argument. And to be honest with you, this argument to me really is invalid because you're saying it only applies to corporations, and I'm just not seeing that, right? So let's move on really fast. And then it goes on to say, finally, any future prosecution of Mr. Smollett for making allegedly false statements about the January 29th, 2019 attack would violate the federal and state ban against double jeopardy. Damn, this is interesting. This is really interesting because I would think that double jeopardy wouldn't apply because double jeopardy involves, in my mind, it would involve a trial and being put on trial twice, right? And in my mind, there was no trial, so you couldn't apply double jeopardy. But let's read on. The United States Supreme Court has held that successive prosecutions for the same offense by a state and by a municipality within that state are prohibited by double jeopardy, right? And then it gives some case law. And it goes, moreover, the Illinois Supreme Court has explained that there is nothing in Waller to suggest that the municipal ordinance designed to provide only for a fine was not to be comprehended in the Supreme Court holdings. Now, I'm going to get into this in a minute because it's pretty damn interesting. Here, the state's attorney's office moved to null pros the charges against Mr. Smollett, who in turn to agreed to forfeit $10,000 bail to the city of Chicago. Thus, any subsequent prosecution of Mr. Smollett under the Illinois Municipal Code based on events January 29, 2019 would violate Mr. Smollett's rights under the Illinois and federal Constitution. So this is interesting because they're basically saying that because he forfeited that $10,000 bail, you can't pursue him because if you did, it would be considered double jeopardy. Now, to me, I would think that's a silly argument, right? How can you apply double jeopardy in a situation where there was no trial and basically you're saying that the $10,000 bail was enough to satisfy the city's potential prosecution, right? So hold on a second. I didn't look up the statute that they actually provided, which I probably should have. I'm pretty sure it's going to be juicy. It's going to be relevant. But just the reason I didn't proceed any further because I just did a general search and I came across a case, United States of America versus Renato Torres. And basically, in this case, I found something really that just kind of blew my mind. And let me just read it to you. Basically, it says, we know now, just to let you know up front, Renato Torres actually lost this case, and I'll get into the reason why he lost it. But first, let me just point out the facts, or point out the elements that I think applies to Jussie Smollett's situation. Basically, it says, we know from Austin v. United States and United States v. Halper that that forfeiture and civil fines can be penalties for a crime. And from Halper and Montana Department of Revenue versus Kurt French, that a financial extraction can count as a separate jeopardy. Wow. They're basically saying that if you take money, right, from a defendant, then that actually counts as being in jeopardy. Austin involved 21 USC 881, which is a federal statute. The same statute invoked to forfeit the $60,000. Torres asked us to put these opinions together and hold that the forfeiture, which occurred first, is a former or form of jeopardy barring the sentence of imprisonment. If the prosecution had solved both forfeiture and imprisonment via the same indictment, Torres' argument would be a non-starter. For the double jeopardy clause does not bar cumulative punishments imposed in a single proceeding. Whether these punishments be the ordinary combination of prison plus a fine, or a consecutive term in prison, or prison plus fine and forfeiture, right? So this is actually devastating to the Chicago's case against Jussie Smollett. Now, basically, they're saying, hey, look, they took the money. That counts as being in jeopardy twice, because first, the first jeopardy was actually the fine. Well, not necessarily fine, the forfeiture of the $10,000. So that's the first jeopardy. And the second jeopardy is actually you trying to come after me again for enough, for even greater amount, right? You know, first you took my 10,000, right? That was the first jeopardy, and now you're trying to come after me for 130,000 plus, which could actually end up being over $490,000. So, based on what I'm reading here, this could possibly be the silver bullet that's going to win Jussie Smollett's case. It very well may be. Now, as I said, I was going to come back and talk about why Torres actually lost this case. He didn't lose this case because of defects in his argument. He lost this case because he when they forfeited the money, there was a situation where he didn't claim that the money actually belonged to him, and because he didn't make the claim that that money actually belonged to him at that particular time when they had the proceeding, they're saying this doesn't apply. This common law doesn't apply because he never let himself out to be, the owner of the money. Because I think there was a situation where he, and don't quote me on this, basically he took the position where, hey, it's not my money, it was just there, and they confiscated it, coming back and saying, hey, wait, that was my money. Well, you can't do that. Basically, we don't know what to believe. Was it your money to begin with, and you just lied to us, or are you lying to us now, right? So that's it. Basically, I think that there is a strong chance that the city of Chicago could lose based off of what I'm reading. And the reason they're going to lose, the reason they could lose is because of the double jeopardy clause. I never knew that that would apply to civil penalties, but from reading U.S. versus Torres, it does. So definitely leave your comments and questions below. Let me know what you think. And please subscribe, share this video. Thank you. Bye.